Greetings to everyone here. It's nice to be back. I haven't seen you all together in one place for a very long time.
It's been weeks and weeks.
Weeks and weeks. And you missed us, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's the art of putting words in other people's mouths and in their hearts. It is no surprise to most that tomorrow is a very special day. I see it in the look of panic on men's faces. And I am thankful for certain stores that have also seen the look of panic and realized that we can make some money here. I don't know if you realize that money can be made on Valentine's Day, if you're smart enough to make it. And so there are stores. Yesterday I was in Fred Meyer and walked in there. I think this is the first time I realized how Valentine's Day is becoming as big as Christmas. This is how the indicator is. You see it, how much space is given in a store to an event. And so I walked through the door and it was shocking. It was like this huge section of the store, obviously dedicated, reds, pinks, balloons, flowers, to Valentine's Day. I thought, that's really kind of odd, but then I saw this guy coming hurriedly behind me, a panic look in his face. And he hustled by me and straight toward this section. And it was like, in the male mind, he was able to process a plan of attack. And you could see it going on. It was happening right up here. And you could see the layout. And I think they probably put a lot of money into figuring out, what does the male mind do when it looks at all this red and hearts and stuff? And how can we make it so accessible? Well, so this guy saw the layout, got his plan in mind, and as he was walking next to the balloon lady, he put in his order. It doesn't matter, just a balloon, right? Something about love. And he hurried past the balloon lady because it takes a while to put the gas in the balloon, and he went beeline for a wall that exists in there. Red boxes shaped like hearts. Have you ever seen these things? Okay. Shaped like hearts of all sizes, which can be confusing to men, that there are so many choices to be made. And so this man went, and he stood right in the middle. He didn't do the Walmart shuffle because that would be inappropriate at Fred Meyer. So he saw the guy in front of him choose. That was good enough because the guy must know something. So he chose that box, threw it in the cart, went over, grabbed a bunch of flowers, which are right there handy, didn't have to go out of his way, grabbed the flowers, put it in his cart, and he looked over, and he paused for a moment in his plan, because there was something new. Did you know that you could buy Valentine underwear? And he just kind of shrugged. He grabbed the underwear, threw it in the cart. He had everything covered. And so then he was able to go back, buy the balloon lady, grab the balloon, and he had a basket full of love right there. He had met all expectations. He's a successful man. And so he bought it, and I'm sure he's going to have a lovely time with how we are training ourselves to respond to love. Now, for some people, and wait a minute, that's kind of bought symbols of love. I just want my honey to know that all the many things that I do around the house is my expression of love. Okay, well, we're in trouble here. But it's those choices of how in our society do we communicate affection? Do we communicate love? And this thing, that is our symbol for the heart, we have in our culture invested with certain romance feelings, certain, the whole dopamine drip in the head, that happy juice, that, I'm just so happy, I'm in love, or, whatever it is. And so that's what this has come to symbolize, is that I have made a choice. And all those great romantic comedies in which somebody is struggling and maybe the woman is going, I want a man and this is how the man is supposed to be, and then this clumsy oaf on the side shows up in her life and she goes like, go away, I'm pursuing the man of my dreams, and she doesn't know that the man of her dreams is this clumsy guy. who ends up being terrific for her. These choices that we have to make to try to get to that thing that demonizes us, of that I need to be fulfilled in these kind of ways. It's an amazing thing. And to think this week of what we saw on television, on the radio, of this outpouring of an 18-day revolution in which people rose up, no matter how you feel about, oh my gosh, what is the choice? If you give people a choice, they could choose badly. They could choose badly for us. But there's something that says, my gosh, they went into the streets and they claimed their life. That has to stir us somewhere. These Egyptian folks went and claimed their life. And they celebrated. And then, after the celebration, they actually came and they cleaned up and they looked around and said, now what? Now what? Well, we overthrew what we didn't like, and now we have some choices. And everybody in the world is looking at them saying, my gosh, they have some choices. What's going to be their choice? Is it going to be further oppression? Is it going to be freedom and liberty? We don't know. This is their story. It's not our story. But it's interesting that these same people, if you travel back in time 4,000 years, they were a great society, a master of the earth. And they were actually enslaving a group of people called the Hebrew people. And the Hebrew people, among the leaders of the Hebrews, a man was elevated to power who didn't have the gift of speech. But he had something. He had an ability to look at society and he had ability to listen to God speaking out of a bush and certain other things that some of our leaders might do better by going out in their garden and listening to bushes. But so you have this leader emerging who then helps with God. Well, he was a small help to God to liberate the Hebrew people from their bondage. 4,000 years before what we just saw as an 18-day revolution, people took up the cause of their liberty. And they went forth. And they crossed the sea. And they went into the wilderness. And in the wilderness, they had to form their understanding of what life together was going to be. They had to listen to God. They had to hear from God what it meant to be God-centered and not to what they had experienced in Egypt, to have a whole bunch of gods available, all these endless choices that they could center their life upon. And hopefully they learned in that 40-year period. But they came to the edge of the wilderness and they were able to look out into what was called the Promised Land, the land flowing with Coca-Cola and chocolate. I got that wrong. Anyway, it was a good place. And they looked out and they said, okay, this is it. This is going to be it. Their leader could not go in. Moses was not allowed to take them to the final part of their journey. Their pastor could not go with the people that he loved so dearly. He had this view, Moses had this view of God as being, if only within each heart, that each heart can be so centered upon God, then everything else would work itself out in terms of how we relate. So he wanted to somehow address his people for the very last time. He gave them about 3 sermons. And these were later written down in the book called Deuteronomy in the Bible. They're sermons, a collection of sermons Moses gave to the people. I'm about ready to go. I want to tell you what is the most important thing. And in the book of Deuteronomy, it starts. Here it is. Hear, listen, O Israel. The Lord thy God is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength. Everything that is within you presses outward. You are to love God. That's the heart of it. That's what Jesus picked up when he was asked the same question, what's the most important commandment? And oh my gosh, there's thousands of places he could have gone, but he said, that's the one. It's always been there. As complex as you think religion is, that's it. Stay at that and you won't have any problems. This morning's scripture talks about basically the blessings that will come to our life if we do that one thing. If we choose, Moses says, I have put before you life which means to be able to focus so deeply on God that the blessings emerging from that, in terms of how your relationships will be, and as you enter this land, you're going to be okay. I have set before you life and death. And death means to go after lesser gods. Now, to go after lesser gods is an issue. How many of you have like little gods in your homes? Like a little statue of Zeus. Anybody pray to Zeus on a regular basis? You're not going to admit it, right? Okay. Who's the goddess of love? Is that Aphrodite? Well, I know a lot of you pray to the Aphrodite goddess. Well, let's check your checkbook and see what kind of romantic movies and all sorts of things that we are attentive to. Okay, so we're in our culture, we don't have those little gods like maybe they had way back when. But Moses is saying, be cautious as we go into this new field. Focus on the one thing. Fill your heart with the one thing, which is the love of God. Because all of a sudden, and okay, here's the test for us in our culture. We don't have the little statuettes. But we ask the question, what are you afraid of? What causes fear of, oh, I don't want to lose that. You know, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing a relationship. I'm afraid of losing, you know, a way of life. What are you afraid of? This is a way of tracking what our gods are on the lesser scale. What are you consumed with? Oh, I'd be so incredibly happy if I could just have that. A new snow machine, a car, a cabin, a new a relationship, that person that I've been eyeing that's near me. If I could just talk to that person, and that's all I could think about. You know, well, this is all natural. But these are the questions. What are we consumed with? What are we afraid of? And with those, we can track to what are the lesser gods that deflect our attention from the one true God. Well, anybody could see as you're driving up and down the streets, Wasilla, in this whole area, there are a lot of cars, trucks, containing a lot of barking dogs. Everywhere you go. You pull up and all of a sudden you don't expect half a dozen dogs to be barking in your ear, but they are. And you look up and there's the sled, and people are beginning to prepare for the Iditarod. And they're coming, they're getting the dogs in shape, etc. I'm thinking, somebody's going to wake up and realize, wait a minute, this is all about the dogs. I'm just kind of a minor player as a musher. You know, the dogs are first in many ways. What crosses the finish line first? Oh, how many dogs cross the finish line? 16, 14, around that area. 16 dogs will cross the finish line before Lance Mackey. In fact, his sled crosses the finish line before Lance Mackey. Lance Mackey is last. And yet, he gets the trophy and the purse. Okay? Now, what if it occurred to him, wait a minute, this is all wrong. I want to be first. I really want to claim that I'm first. Well, then you're putting the sled before the dogs. And you're getting this new concept of, I'm going to have the dogs push the sled. And I'm going to be out there in front, you know, and I'll just from Willow to Nome, I'm just going to be, you know, eating my caribou jerky. And the dogs, have you ever seen those dogs where they dress them up in a dress? And they have them with a little either shopping cart or a baby carriage. And they look ridiculous. If you imagine that 16 of these dogs lined up doing this dance, this bunny hop from Willow to Nome. Yeah. And then there's Lance Mackey chewing on his jerky and then realize, oh, there's the finish line. And he gets out there and he puts his nose out there. So he can claim that he is first. Well, this is ridiculous. Oh, Pastor, please stop this nonsense. This is painful to everybody. But he doesn't think that. He doesn't have that concept. That's not how the sled and the dogs and the musher are in unison relationship. He knows, and the dogs have been trained, they know how the whole thing is designed to work for effectiveness. Not for dogs to push the cart, the sled, but for the dogs to pull. And they will pull passionately. And they will pull out of the deepest affection for their musher master. That's kind of hard to say. Anyway, so this is the way it is designed to be. And from doing the service for our friend Bruce Braden, and to hear the tales of his being out there on the trails with his dogs that he dearly loved, and to hear his testimony of what he called the silent running. Silent running is when everything is just going so smooth, and the dogs are obeying you, and they're going with the wind is there, and it's cold, and this hush, this holy hush of snow, this filtering snow everywhere that you could almost hear it, but there's the wind and the muffled nature, and then the dogs on the path. It's called the silent running. And he says, when you go into, and when you can experience that, he says, it's like entering into poetry. There's something so deeply fulfilling about being in that relationship, in that motion at that time. Oh, I wish I could experience something like that. That sounds beautiful. And yet the invitation that Moses gives us this morning, I have set before you life, which is the love of God in your heart for your focus. And I have set before you death, which is to go after so many different things that will never satisfy you. And Moses says, please, I've been with you a long time. You know, we've been through a lot. We saw a lot of crazy things. Please choose life as you enter into the land. Don't go after the idols. I'm going to end with one moment in which I'm going to talk about one idol in my life that as I went after it, it brought me nothing but despair. But I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was totally within the will of God. And by the way, I'm still doing it, but with a different spirit. In my 20s, as I was in seminary, I really wanted to get a PhD and to be a theologian and to enter into a university somewhere as a professor. I wanted it so bad. And I got this amazing opportunity because I thought, in my 20s, I thought, well, if I'm going to get one, I want to get a European one. So I was going down the slippery slope here. I want a European one. So I was accepted in a school in Scotland, University of Aberdeen, and I was accepted in a school, a university in Germany, Universität Erlangen-Nuremberg. And the German one was free. So I decided I would go there, and I uprooted the family, and we went there on this amazing adventure to start this process of my getting. It was so timely. I could get the degree, come back, be able to teach, and have a wonderful life in there. I wanted it so badly, and my dreams were happening. I was in the university studying theology, and I was feeling great. I ran out of money in this midst of this, and I didn't know how to get money. And I kept hearing over and over again the rules that you can work in Germany as long as you can prove that no other German can do this job. Well, let's see, there's like 50-some million people, and that's going to be a difficult thing to do. Anyway, we came back, and I was crushed because that was my dream. That was my dream. And I remember feeling physically ill, because my dream had been crushed. It affected everything. It affected my relationships. It affected my own spirit within me. How can I even get up in the morning? I felt lost for so incredibly long. But in a way it was kind of twisted because this was how I was going to serve God. And yet it was something that was eating me up like a cancer for years and years and years. Sometimes there are dreams that become those little gods, a hope for a certain kind of life. But it's not God-centered. It's maybe God-given, but then we take over and we own it improperly. And so I wanted to convey of all the different kinds of ways that we can choose death. This is in my own life, a way that I had chosen death. something that ate at me, to the point where right now I am finishing up my dissertation, doing my doctoral work. But you know, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't eat me alive that this is a have to. If I don't do it, that will be a sad thing, but I'm not going to die because I didn't do it. What's more important is the love of God, the love of my family. These things I found when I concentrate on God and allow my heart to be open to God. Then we could say, this is the most incredible Valentine that is possible for us. That Valentine in which, as someone wrote a letter about his wife who just found out a couple months ago that she had cancer. They just got married. They just found the perfect life, so filled with love for each other. She got cancer, and it was a progressive cancer, and she's in the hospital now. And last night he wrote a note out saying, it could be any day that she's gone. My, how fast. Yesterday we took her out. We were able to get her out in a wheelchair, and she could feel the wind, and how much she loved and appreciated the feeling of the wind. And then he ended with these words, 4 words that I'm going to end with. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing for granted. The one you are with, the life that has been given to you, the God-given spirit within you. Take nothing for granted. Happy Valentine's Day.